We can't afford to feed you, my mom said, kicking me out at 18. 10 years later, I'm a chef with a Michelin star. They showed up asking for a free table. I sent the server over with the bill. And a note, we reserve the right to refuse service. Sup Reddit. Got a story that's been eating at me for years. Finally ready to share. Grab some snacks because this one's a ride. I'm going to start from the beginning so you understand just how messed up this situation was. I'm Jake, 28 male, and I grew up in what looked like a normal middle-class family in Ohio. Dad worked as an insurance adjuster. Mom did part-time bookkeeping for local businesses. Nothing fancy, but we weren't hurting either. Or so I thought. My younger sister Natalie, 26 female, was born when I was 2. From that moment on, the family dynamic shifted in ways I didn't understand until much later. Everything became about her. Every decision, every purchase, every family plan revolved around what Natalie wanted or needed. When I was 8 and asked for a new bike because mine was too small, Dad said we couldn't afford it. 2 weeks later, Natalie got a brand new princess-themed bedroom set. Cost about $800, but a $60 bike was too expensive. The pattern continued through childhood. I wore hand-me-downs while Natalie got new clothes every season. I shared a tiny room with storage boxes while she had the master bedroom. Birthdays were the worst. Mine meant a card with $20. Hers meant themed parties with dozens of guests. When I asked why, Mom would say I was being selfish. Your sister needs more attention. You're tough. You can handle things. Translation. I was expected to raise myself while they focused on their precious daughter. High school brought new levels of inequality. Natalie's competitive dance got $2,000 for costumes and travel. The culinary club's $5 membership fee was too much right now. That culinary club changed my life, though. Mr. Peterson saw something in me. He let me stay after school to practice techniques, taught me knife skills, brought in ingredients from his own kitchen. You've got natural instincts, he told me after I'd executed a hollandaise sauce perfectly on my 3rd try. Most students take months. Food made sense in a way nothing else did. In the kitchen, I had control. I could make something from nothing. My parents never came to culinary showcases. When I won 2nd place in a regional cooking competition, Mom glanced at the trophy and asked if I'd cleaned my room. But when Natalie placed 4th in a local dance competition, celebration dinner, relatives invited, social media posts for weeks. Senior year, college applications started. The Culinary Institute had an incredible program 3 hours away. Tuition was about $30,000 a year. I'd been working at a local diner since 16, saved about $8,000. I asked my parents for help with tuition or to co-sign a loan. Dad laughed. We're not spending that kind of money so you can learn to flip burgers, he said. Get a real job. 2 months later, they bought Natalie a brand new Honda Civic for her 16th birthday. $22,000. She hadn't even asked for it. I was still driving the beat-up Toyota they'd bought for $500. But Natalie needed reliable transportation for dance. The inequality became impossible to ignore. In my junior year alone, they spent over $15,000 on Natalie. About $300 on me, only because my work shoes fell apart. When I showed Mom the numbers, she got angry. How dare you track our spending like we're criminals? We give you a roof and food. Your sister has special needs. Special needs? Natalie was perfectly healthy. She just wanted everything and got it. The final breaking point came 3 weeks after I turned 18. I'd been accepted to the Culinary Institute with a partial scholarship covering 40%. I still needed $7,000 for the first year. I'd applied for every grant and loan, worked extra shifts, sold everything I could. I asked my parents for a loan one last time. Not a gift, a loan. I had a payment schedule ready. Dad didn't look at it, just said no. We don't have that kind of money, Mom added. The next day, Natalie announced she wanted a summer dance intensive in New York. 8 weeks of training. Cost? $12,000. Of course, sweetheart, Dad said immediately. We'll make it work. I stood there in disbelief. That's when I snapped. Not yelling or throwing things, just something inside me broke. I realized with complete clarity that they would never choose me, would never support me, would never see me as worth investing in. I don't understand, I said quietly. How do you have $12,000 for Natalie, but not $7,000 for my education? Mom sighed. Natalie's program is an incredible opportunity. Your cooking school is just cooking. It's one of the best culinary institutes in the country. It's a waste of money, Dad cut in. You'll end up in a kitchen for minimum wage. At least Natalie's training might lead somewhere. They believed my passion was worthless compared to whatever Natalie wanted. The next morning, my belongings were in trash bags by the front door. Mom stood with arms crossed. We've decided it's time for you to move out. You're 18, an adult. We need the space and we can't afford to keep feeding you while saving for Natalie's program. Can't afford to feed me? They had 12,000 for dance camp but couldn't afford to feed their son. You're kicking me out? We're helping you become independent, Dad said. You're an adult. Time to stand on your own feet. Natalie watched from the stairs, not saying anything. Not defending me. I loaded my trash bags into my car and drove away. Didn't cry, didn't beg, just left. That was the last time I stepped foot in that house. The first months were brutal. Couldn't afford an apartment on diner wages. Mr. Peterson let me sleep on his couch for a month. His wife made sure I ate real meals. They treated me with more care in 4 weeks than my parents had in years. This is temporary, Mr. Peterson said. You've got talent. Don't let them take that. I deferred my culinary school acceptance for a year and got a second job washing dishes at Meridian, a higher-end restaurant. Between both jobs, I worked 90 hours a week. The head chef, Chef Anton, was an intimidating French guy who ran his kitchen like a military operation. After a month, he pulled me aside. You're wasting talent washing dishes. Tomorrow you start on prep. I became a prep cook, breaking down chickens, dicing vegetables, making stocks. Grunt work, but I was learning. Chef Anton was tough but fair. You have good instincts, but instincts mean nothing without discipline. After 6 months, I rented a room in a house with 3 other guys. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Meanwhile, Natalie's summer intensive happened. My parents posted constant updates about her incredible experience. Not a single mention of their son working 2 jobs to survive. I unfollowed all of them. Needed to focus on my own future. By the time I enrolled at the Culinary Institute, I'd saved enough to cover most of first year. Took minimal loans for the rest. The institute was intense but incredible. Classical French techniques, molecular gastronomy, wine pairing, restaurant management. My instructors recognized my work ethic. While others complained, I thrived. I'd been working in kitchens for over a year already. Second year, I landed an internship at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Chef Linda Park was known for innovative American cuisine. She pushed me harder than anyone, but believed in me. When I suggested a modification to her dish, she had me prepare it and added it to the menu. You've got something. That instinct for flavors, you can't teach that. I graduated at the top of my class. My parents weren't there. Mr. and Mrs. Peterson came instead. Chef Park offered me a line cook position. Most graduates would have killed for that opportunity. The next 4 years were a masterclass in fine dining. I worked every station, learned her operations, how she developed dishes. When she opened a second location, she chose me to run the kitchen. At 24, I became head chef of a restaurant that earned its own Michelin star within a year. The recognition was surreal. Critics mentioned my name. Industry publications did profiles. At 26, I left to open my own place. Finding investors was tough, but having a Michelin star and Chef Park's endorsement opened doors. I pitched my concept, elevated comfort food with seasonal, locally sourced ingredients. Ember opened in a renovated warehouse downtown. Exposed brick, open kitchen, seating for 60. Small menu that changed weekly based on peak ingredients. The first 6 months were brutal. Long hours, constant stress, money problems. But word spread. Bloggers came, critics noticed, reservations filled weeks in advance. Year 2, we earned our first Michelin star. I was 27, head chef and owner of a Michelin-starred restaurant. The kid kicked out at 18 had built something extraordinary. My staff became like family. The sous chef, Christina, had been with me since opening. She understood my vision and kept things running smooth. You built something real here. Not just the food, but the culture. Life was good. Successful restaurant, great team, industry respect, financial security. Everything I'd built was mine. Then my family showed up. It started with a reservation request. The name didn't register at first, but reviewing Saturday's list, something made me look closer. Party of 4 under Mitchell family. Same last name. Hometown area code. Guest notes. Looking forward to the incredible food. Natalie. They'd found me. After 10 years of silence. Christina noticed my expression. Everything okay? I left the reservation active, but noted, do not comp anything. Standard service only. Saturday came and I was more nervous than I'd been in years. This was my restaurant, my kitchen, my rules. They arrived on time. I watched from the kitchen pass as the host seated them. Mom looked older, Dad had gained weight, Natalie was overdressed. Some guy was with her. They looked impressed but tried not to show it. Mom was reading the menu with raised eyebrows, probably at the prices. Tasting menu was $150 per person. A la carte dishes, $35 to $75. Not outrageous for a Michelin-starred restaurant, but definitely not cheap. Christina came beside me. That's them? Yep. The server James came back. Table 12 is asking if the chef does table visits. They requested to speak with you. Of course they did. Tell them I'm busy with service, but I'll try to stop by if there's time. They ordered the tasting menu. All for $600 before drinks and tax. I treated them like any other guests. Same food, same service, same experience. My team executed every course perfectly. The progression showcased technique and seasonal ingredients. James reported back after each course. They seemed to enjoy the food, though Mom kept asking preparation questions, and Dad commented on portion sizes. Natalie was taking pictures of everything for social media. Of course. After the main course, James returned looking uncomfortable. They're asking again if you can come to the table. Your sister said to tell you it's important family business. Family business. During Saturday service. Christina touched my arm. You don't have to go. I'll go, but only for a minute. I took off my chef's coat, washed my hands, and headed to table 12. As I approached, I could see them all sit up straighter, putting on smiles. Jake! Mom stood up like she was going to hug me. I took a small step back and she stopped, looking hurt. Good evening. I hear you wanted to speak with the chef. The formal tone clearly threw them off. Dad recovered first, extending his hand for a shake. I didn't take it. Just kept my hands clasped behind my back, maintaining professional distance. Son, it's so good to see you. The food has been incredible. We had no idea you'd accomplished so much. Thank you. We work hard to maintain our standards. Natalie jumped in. All manufactured enthusiasm. This place is amazing. I've been posting about it and my followers are so impressed. We absolutely had to come try it once we found out this was your restaurant. How did you find out? I asked, genuinely curious about what had prompted this visit after a decade of silence. There was an article in the regional magazine. They did a feature on local chefs, and there was your picture. We recognized you immediately. So they'd seen my success in a magazine and decided to show up. Not because they'd been following my career or were genuinely proud, but because media attention made me relevant enough to acknowledge. The magazine piece was very complimentary, Mom added quickly. Though I told everyone we always knew you had potential. I used to tell people about your cooking talents all the time. The audacity was stunning. They'd literally called my career choice a waste of money, kicked me out of their house, but now they'd always known I had potential and bragged about me to their friends. We were hoping we could talk, Dad said. Maybe after your shift? We have some things we'd like to discuss. Family matters. I'm afraid I have a full evening, multiple seatings, and prep for tomorrow's service. Surely you can spare an hour for your family, Mom said, that edge creeping into her voice. The same tone she'd used when I was a kid, and not cooperating with whatever they wanted. I treat all my guests equally, I replied. And right now, I have other tables that need attention. Please enjoy your dessert course. I'll have James bring it out shortly. I started to walk away, but Natalie called out, Wait, can we at least get a picture? For my social media? I turned back. I'm afraid I don't do that during service. If you'd like, you can take pictures of the restaurant itself, but I don't pose for photos with guests. Company policy. It wasn't actually company policy. I'd done photo ops with guests before, when they were celebrating special occasions or were visiting food enthusiasts I respected. But for them, not a chance. Back in the kitchen, Christina gave me a questioning look. They want to talk about family matters, I said, putting my coat back on. I told them I was busy. Good. They don't deserve your time. The dessert course went out. Chocolate souffle with raspberry coulis and vanilla bean ice cream, one of our signature dishes. James reported they enjoyed it, took more pictures, and asked multiple times if I was coming back to the table. When their check came, Dad apparently looked at it for a long moment before handing over his credit card. $648 with drinks, plus automatic 20% gratuity for parties over 3, bringing the total to nearly $800. That's when things got interesting. James came back to the kitchen looking worried. Table 12 is asking to speak with a manager. They're disputing the check. What's the issue? They expected the meal to be comped. Said since your family, they assumed they wouldn't be charged. The entitlement was unreal. They'd shown up unannounced, made demands on my time during the busiest service of the week, and expected hundreds of dollars of food and wine to be free because we happen to share DNA. Tell them the check is correct and we don't comp meals for anyone. That's our policy. James hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. The dad is being kind of aggressive about it, saying it's disrespectful to charge family members. Other tables are starting to notice. I wiped my hands on a kitchen towel, took off my coat again, and headed back to their table. Several other diners were glancing over, clearly aware something was happening. The energy in the dining room had shifted. When I reached the table, Dad started immediately, voice raised just enough to be heard by nearby tables. Jake, there seems to be some mistake with the bill. We assumed given our relationship that the meal would be complimentary. There's no mistake. The bill is correct. But we're family, Natalie said. Like this simple fact explained everything and overrode all normal business practices. You're guests at my restaurant, I replied calmly, keeping my voice level and professional. All guests pay for their meals. That's how restaurants work. Mom's face flushed red and her voice rose. After everything we did for you, you can't even treat us to one dinner? After we raised you and gave you everything? The words hung in the air. Several nearby tables had definitely heard that. My staff was watching from the kitchen pass, and I could see Christina standing ready in case things escalated further. I thought about all the responses I could give. The trash bags by the door. The $12,000 for Natalie's dance camp versus 0 for me. The, we can't afford to feed you while they planned expensive trips. Being kicked out at 18 and told my dreams were worthless. All the years of taking credit for my work. Instead, I kept it simple and professional. The meal total is $777.40. I'll need a credit card to process payment. This is ridiculous, Dad said, voice rising. We came here to reconnect, to support your business, and you're treating us like strangers? You are strangers. You've been strangers for almost 10 years. And this is a business, not a charity for people who happen to share my last name. I signaled to James, who brought over the payment terminal. The other diners weren't even pretending not to watch anymore. Dad threw down his credit card with force. Fine, but don't expect us to come back. I don't, I said simply. While James processed the payment, the silence at their table was thick. Mom looked like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find words. Natalie was staring at her phone, probably panicking about what to post about this dinner now. The boyfriend looked deeply uncomfortable, like he'd rather be anywhere else. The payment went through. James brought back the receipt for signature. Dad scrawled his name with obvious anger, didn't add any additional tip beyond the automatic gratuity, and stood up. Let's go, he said to the others. They gathered their things. As they stood to leave, Mom looked at me with tears in her eyes. The performance was impressive. I'll give her that. We were so proud when we saw that article. We wanted to see what you'd built. We wanted to be part of your success. You wanted to be part of my success now that it exists. Where were you when I was washing dishes to survive? When I was living on someone's couch? When I graduated at the top of my class? I kept my voice level, professional. You made your choice 10 years ago. I'm just respecting that decision. Natalie found her voice finally. You're being really unfair. We came here to make amends, and you're holding grudges. I'm running a business. If you want to make amends, that's something we can discuss outside of my restaurant, outside of my work hours, after you've had time to think about what you'd actually be apologizing for. But showing up unannounced and expecting free food isn't making amends. It's the same entitled behavior you've always had. They left without another word. I watched them walk out, their exit observed by dozens of diners who'd witnessed at least part of the confrontation. Once they were gone, the restaurant was silent for about 5 seconds. Then someone started clapping. Then another table joined in. Within moments, the entire dining room was applauding. I nodded politely and headed back to the kitchen, where my team had witnessed everything. That was incredible, Christina said. Completely professional, but absolutely savage. The rest of service went smoothly, though I could tell word was spreading. Some guests who'd seen the confrontation went out of their way to compliment the food when they left, adding generous tips and promising to return. After we closed and cleaned up, I finally sat in my office and let the emotions hit. Anger, sadness, relief, pride, everything at once. I'd stood my ground. I'd protected my space. I'd refused to let them back in just because it was convenient for them. Christina knocked on the doorframe. You okay? Yeah, better than okay, actually. They'll probably try to contact you again. She was right. Within an hour, my phone, which I'd silenced during service, showed 17 missed calls, 32 text messages, and multiple voicemails. I didn't check any of them. Not that night. By Monday morning, the situation had escalated in ways I hadn't anticipated. Natalie had posted about the restaurant visit on her social media, but her version of events was creative fiction. According to her story, she and our parents had gone to support my business, only to be publicly humiliated and overcharged for mediocre food. She claimed I'd embarrassed them in front of dozens of people, and that the meal wasn't worth the price. She had thousands of followers, and the post was getting attention. People were commenting in support, saying I sounded like a terrible person, that family should support each other, that my prices were evidence of greed. She'd carefully edited the story to make them look like victims, and me look like a vindictive jerk with an ego problem. What she didn't know was that 3 of the diners from Saturday night were food bloggers with significant followings of their own. By Sunday evening, they'd all posted about witnessing the confrontation, with a very different take than Natalie's version. One blogger, Janet, wrote, "Witnessed something incredible at Ember last night. A family showed up expecting free meal at this Michelin-starred restaurant. Chef/owner handled the entitled behavior with grace and professionalism. The food was exceptional, the atmosphere was perfect, and watching him stand his ground made the evening unforgettable. Full review coming soon." Another blogger posted, "PSA. Just because you're related to a successful chef doesn't mean you're entitled to free food. Watched a family throw a fit at Ember when they had to pay their bill like everyone else. The chef handled it like a pro. The duck was perfection, by the way. Worth every penny." The third blogger went deeper. "There's a story circulating about a chef who mistreated his family at his restaurant. I was there. Here's what actually happened. Family showed up unannounced during busy service, demanded special treatment, expected meal to be comped, and threw a tantrum when they had to pay like everyone else. The chef was nothing but professional. His food was outstanding. Don't believe the spin." The 3 posts got shared and reshared. Other diners from that night chimed in with their observations. Within 24 hours, Natalie's narrative was falling apart under the weight of multiple eyewitness accounts contradicting her version. Food industry people started weighing in too. Other chefs commented about dealing with entitled family members. Restaurant owners shared similar stories. The general consensus was that I'd handled the situation appropriately. By Tuesday, a local news outlet picked up the story and actually called me for comment. I declined to be interviewed, but my publicist, yes, having a Michelin star meant I needed a publicist, issued a simple statement. Chef Jake maintains a policy of treating all guests equally, regardless of personal relationships. Ember does not comp meals for anyone, as this would be unfair to our paying customers who support our business. We appreciate the support we've received from the dining community and look forward to continuing to serve our guests the exceptional food they've come to expect. Professional, diplomatic, and completely shut down the narrative that I'd done something wrong. The calls and texts from my family continued. Dad left voicemails demanding I fix this and stop embarrassing the family. Mom sent long texts about how hurt she was. Natalie messaged saying I'd destroyed her reputation and owed her an apology. I didn't respond to any of it. My attorney sent them a cease and desist letter about the defamatory social media posts. Natalie took down her original post, but left up vague comments about toxic family members and lessons learned about success-changing people. The irony of her saying success changed people was not lost on me. Meanwhile, business at Ember was booming. The controversy actually helped. Reservations were booked solid for 2 months out. People wanted to eat at the restaurant where the chef had stood up to entitled family members. We had to add another seating time to accommodate demand. One evening, about 2 weeks after the incident, an older couple came in for dinner. After their meal, they asked to speak with me. I went to their table expecting another compliment or recipe question. The man extended his hand. "I'm Thomas Mitchell, your father's brother. Your uncle, though we've never met." I shook his hand cautiously. Another family member showing up couldn't be good. "I wanted to come see what you'd built," he continued, "and to apologize on behalf of the family. Not everyone agrees with how your parents treated you." His wife nodded. "We heard about what happened when you were 18. We were living overseas at the time for Thomas's work. When we came back and found out they'd kicked you out with no support, we were appalled. We tried to find you," Thomas said, "but you'd changed your number and your social media profiles were gone. We wanted to help, but didn't know how. I didn't know what to say. I'd assumed the entire extended family was either supportive of my parents or indifferent. The meal was exceptional," his wife continued. "You've built something remarkable here. We just wanted you to know that not everyone in the family thinks what they did was acceptable." We talked for a few more minutes. They gave me their contact information and said if I ever wanted to reach out, they'd welcome it. No pressure, no expectations, just an open door. After they left, Christina asked what that was about. "Apparently, I have some family members who aren't terrible," I said. "Who knew?" The next unexpected contact came via email from Mr. Peterson. He'd retired from teaching but had heard about the restaurant and the drama. His email was short. "Jake, I always knew you'd do something extraordinary. I'm sorry your parents couldn't see what was obvious to everyone else. You were the best student I ever taught, and not just because of your skills. You had heart. You still do. That meal you served them was worth every penny they paid. I'm proud of you. Peterson." I called him that night and we talked for over an hour. He filled me in on his retirement, his grandkids, his garden. I told him about the restaurant, about Chef Anton and Chef Park, about building something from nothing. You did this yourself, he said. That's what makes it meaningful. Nothing was handed to you. You earned every bit of it. He was right. And that's what my parents could never understand. They thought I should be grateful they'd fed and housed me for 18 years, the bare minimum required by law. They thought throwing me out would teach me a lesson about appreciating them. Instead, it taught me that I was better off without them. 6 months after the restaurant incident, life had reached a new normal. Ember was thriving. We'd expanded our wine program, added a chef's table experience, and hired 2 additional line cooks to handle the volume. I'd started the process of opening a second location. Nothing huge, just a more casual spot, serving elevated comfort food at accessible prices. The planning was exhausting, but exciting. My personal life was good too. I'd been seeing someone I'd met at a food industry event, Rachel, a food photographer who actually understood the restaurant world and didn't mind my schedule. We'd been dating for 3 months and it felt easy in a way relationships never had before. Rachel had asked about my family once early on. I gave her the short version. She listened without judgment and said, "Makes sense that you've built your own family with your team and mentors." She was right. The people at Ember were my family now. We celebrated successes together, supported each other through challenges, and genuinely cared about each other's lives beyond work. Then I got a letter. Not an email or text, an actual handwritten letter forwarded to the restaurant from my parents' attorney. The letter claimed that I owed them compensation for my upbringing and education. They argued that since I'd used skills learned in high school culinary club to build my career, they were entitled to a portion of my success. They wanted $25,000 as repayment for their investment in my future. I read the letter 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. They were actually trying to extort money from me by claiming they deserved credit for Mr. Peterson's culinary club. My attorney laughed when I showed her. This has no legal standing whatsoever. Parents are legally required to provide food, shelter, and education through age 18. They can't bill you for it later, especially when they kicked you out. And claiming ownership of your career because you took a class in high school? That's absurd. She sent a response letter that was professional but firm. The claim had no merit. Any further harassment would result in legal action. They needed to cease all contact immediately. 2 days later, Dad called the restaurant during lunch service. The host put him through to my office before realizing who it was. "Jake, we need to talk about this situation rationally," he began. "The situation where you're trying to extort money from me? It's not extortion. It's fair compensation. We raised you. We fed you. We kept a roof over your head. That has value. You did the bare minimum required by law, then kicked me out at 18 because you couldn't afford to feed me. Remember? That was your exact wording. You couldn't afford to feed me because you needed the money for Natalie's dance camp. We were helping you become independent. You were choosing one child over another, like you'd been doing my entire childhood. And now that I've succeeded despite you, rather than because of you, you want money?" He changed tactics. "Your mother misses you. This conflict is killing her. She cries every day about not having a relationship with her son. She had 18 years to build a relationship with her son. She chose to focus on her daughter instead. And now that her son is successful, suddenly she's devastated? That's not missing me. That's missing access to my success. You've changed," Dad said. "Success has made you cold. No, getting kicked out at 18 made me independent. Working 90-hour weeks made me tough. Building a business from nothing made me confident. You're just upset that the son you dismissed as worthless turned out to be worth quite a lot." I hung up. Then I blocked their numbers, their email addresses, and any other way they could contact me directly. The attorney letters continued for a few more weeks, each one more desperate than the last. My lawyer handled all of it. Eventually, they stopped. Either their attorney told them the claim was hopeless, or they ran out of money for legal fees. Through all of this, business kept growing. Food critics from national publications came to review Ember. We maintained our Michelin star and started getting buzz about potentially earning a second. I was invited to compete on a cooking show, one of those reality competition things. Normally, I avoided that kind of publicity, but the exposure would be good for the second location we were planning. The show aired 3 months later. I didn't win, came in 3rd out of 12 chefs. But the experience was valuable and the exposure was incredible. The episode where I talked about opening my restaurant after being kicked out at 18 resonated with a lot of viewers. After the show aired, I got hundreds of messages from people sharing their own stories about unsupportive families, about building success despite obstacles, about choosing to create their own families instead of accepting toxic relationships. One message stood out. It was from a 17-year-old kid in Florida whose parents were telling him his dream of becoming a chef was worthless. He asked if he should give up or keep fighting. I called him. We talked for an hour. I told him about Mr. Peterson, about Chef Anton, about finding people who believed in him even when his family didn't. I told him that his parents' inability to see his potential said nothing about his actual abilities. Are you any good? I asked him. I think so. My home ec teacher says I have real talent. Then find that teacher and ask for help. Ask for mentorship. Ask for guidance. The right people will show up if you're willing to work hard and stay humble. 3 months later, he sent me a video of himself cooking in what looked like a professional kitchen. He'd gotten an after-school job at a local restaurant. The chef there had seen his potential and was training him. Thank you for believing in me when my own parents wouldn't, his message said. You changed my life. That message meant more to me than any Michelin star or positive review. I'd been that kid. I knew what it felt like to have your dreams dismissed. And now I could help others in the same situation. I started a small scholarship fund for culinary students from difficult family situations. Nothing huge, just enough to help with tuition, books, and supplies for students who wanted to pursue cooking but lacked support. We funded it through a portion of profits from Ember and donations from people who'd heard my story. The first recipient was the kid from Florida. He was accepted to culinary school, and our scholarship covered half his first-year tuition. He sent me a picture of himself on his first day, wearing his chef's whites with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. That's what success was supposed to be about. Not revenge, not proving people wrong, but using your position to help others who were where you'd been. It's been almost 10 years since my parents kicked me out with trash bags full of my belongings. 8 years since I opened Ember. The restaurant now has 2 Michelin stars. The second location opened last year and is doing great. The scholarship fund has helped 15 students so far. My parents occasionally try to reach out through distant relatives or old family friends. The message is always some version of wanting to reconnect or being so proud of what I've built. I don't respond. Natalie got married last year. I know because someone sent me a wedding announcement they'd received. I wasn't invited, obviously. Her dance career never took off. Turns out thousands of hours of training don't guarantee success if you don't have the work ethic to match your ambition. Last I heard, she's working in marketing and still living in my hometown. My relationship with Rachel is solid. She gets the restaurant life, understands why I am the way I am, and has become close with my chosen family. The team at Ember, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, Chef Anton, who occasionally visits from France, Chef Park, who I still consider a mentor. Rachel's family basically adopted me. Her parents are warm and welcoming, interested in my work, proud of my achievements. Her dad tells people, my future son-in-law is a chef with genuine enthusiasm. Her mom asks for cooking tips and actually listens to my answers. Last month was Thanksgiving. Rachel's family invited me to their celebration. Her grandmother made everyone go around the table and say what they were thankful for. When it was my turn, I said I was thankful for everyone who'd believed in me when it mattered, for the opportunities I'd been given to build something meaningful, and for finding a family that chose me rather than being stuck with one I was born into. Rachel squeezed my hand under the table. Her dad raised his glass. To families we choose, he said. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.